There is an absolute gold rush taking place in the pharmaceutical industry. Everyone is trying to solve the obesity epidemic that we have in the world. The leaders now are Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, but there are a lot of new companies coming up. And the next holy grail is probably finding a tablet to solve this problem. So with us today, we have Pila Pharma and their CEO, Gustav. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric.
So we're super excited to get to know Pila Pharma better. So I thought we'd start off with a little presentation.
Sure. So we're Pila Pharma. We're a small Swedish-founded company. Our headquarters are in Malmö, in southern Sweden, but we're listed here in Stockholm. And we're developing a novel type of oral treatment for treatment of obesity and type 2 diabetes. So very interesting. The space has really developed a huge amount the last couple of years, of course. I'm personally Danish, our founder's Danish, so we've been very much exposed to Novo. Our invention actually originates from Novo as well, so we have a lot of ties to Denmark and to that particular field. And of course that only makes it more interesting now that we can see that the industry is coming around and this market will be likely the largest pharmaceutical sector across any modality, I would say.
And we're super happy to have you here. I think the entire stock market is interested in getting to know the company better, getting to know you. So yeah, it's probably good if we start off with a little presentation. Then I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, sure. So we can run through. So these are not exactly our tablets, but of course it's a simulation of how we envisage to have a product that could be delivered as an oral solution. And we are aiming to, of course, treat obesity and all of the related comorbidities that come with having obesity, such as type 2 diabetes. To start off, I think it's good to have a sort of an understanding of where we are on a global basis when it comes to obesity and diabetes. And on this particular slide, I've brought together some stats on both diabetes and obesity. On the right, we see that diabetes is currently estimated to around 828 million on a global stage, and that is of course a huge amount considering that we are around 8 billion people, so 10% of the entire population globally have type 2 diabetes. I think that's crazy to think about, and especially when you think about how many expenses this requires for healthcare systems around the world. We see double to triple digit increases across the globe, of course more so in less developed countries, perhaps indicative of the way that we have already developed diabetes in the western part of the world, or perhaps because their life are getting better. On the left side, we see obesity is really spiraling out of control. 25% of the world's population will be obese by 2045. We have in recent years seen these new medications such as GLP-1s coming through, which are fantastic new products that really can reduce a lot of body weight in a short amount of time. The problem is that they are not very accessible to people around the world. Currently, as far as we understand, production capacity is at 100%, and still there's only 2% of the entire global population that has access to these drugs. So there's a huge amount of unmet need out there in the world, and it goes without saying, both in the industry but among analysts as well, that if you want to treat the global prevalence, then you need a solution that is scalable and oral. So a tablet-based treatment. The landscape itself is evolving. It's not just Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, like you mentioned before. There's a ton of new players coming through. We see a lot of deal activity. There's a lot of licensing deals, but there's also a lot of acquisitions. And this, of course, is very interesting to a company like ours. We are developing something that is very different to what most other companies are doing. Many companies are targeting different gut hormones in order to seduce the appetite, and I think that's also a very relevant way to go if you are to lose weight. But there's many different pathways in the body that could potentially act as a stimulant for decreasing body weight. So we have one, and these guys have some others. What I mean to say with this slide is that there's a lot of activity, and it's more than just the big ones. But we do see a huge number of big pharma companies now coming into the race, wishing to be a part of it. And we see a lot of deal making on this. So the obesity space is transitioning to more oral opportunities as we see it now. Even from last year to this year, the increase in the amount of oral assets in clinical development is increasing. It is now at more than 40%. And whereas we have previously seen GLP-1s being the predominant modality to target. In the light blue one here, we see a huge number of different combination treatments as well as standalone modalities coming through now. So there's a lot of creativity and optimism to find different pathways that could potentially work for this particular field, and ours is included. So some deal making, we've seen a couple of Danish companies here that made some big deals with both AbbVie and Roche from Switzerland and the United States. These are traditionally players that have not been in obesity or type 2 diabetes treatments. So it's very interesting to see that they are now betting big on getting a foot into this space. And it is, of course, based on them having the capacity to develop something that is vastly differentiated. And we see some huge upfronts here, $350 million and $1.6 billion, which is, of course, great for smaller companies to get that kind of money into the bank. So we work with this receptor called TRPV1. We are looking to inhibit this with the purpose of reducing inflammation throughout the body. We believe that this could potentially generate weight loss by stimulating both a decreased satiety, but also potentially increase the energy expenditure. So we have some data from a rat model here where a TRPV1 inhibitor has been shown to actively decrease the body weight gain in rats, which is a typical model when you are looking to assess a drug's potential in an obesity study. And normally this would translate to body weight loss when translated to humans. So we have reason to believe that our molecule would work the same way, but of course that's not a guarantee. We currently don't have any data on our molecule in obesity, but this is something that we would like to assess. The way we would like to assess it, and this is something that we have been discussing within our company and of course with our board of directors, we've looked a little bit at how these two Danish companies got to their deals. And it's actually not that complicated. It starts off by conducting a preclinical proof of concept study in rats normally. That subsequently to getting good results in this, you would be able to patent your invention in this disease, of course. And sidelining with this, you could send in a clinical trial application for a human study in obese patients without diabetes and other complications. And if you are able to generate good results in this, then you're definitely in a different segment where the interest for your drug will be very elevated. So this is something we're looking to conduct now. We're of course looking to figure out how it's feasible and how quick it can be done. But this is the sort of model that is feasible to get to the stage where a partnership is feasible. Product profile, as it stands right now, of course, there's a couple of injectable solutions for diabetes and obesity on the market right now. There's one oral solution on the market for diabetes. These all have gastrointestinal side effects, so stomach issues like nausea, constipation, diarrhea, etc. Ours, we believe, will not have these types of GI side effects, and so that will be a vastly differentiated profile there. And of course, being oral, it's a solution that can be mass scaled and of course manufactured and moved around the world cost effectively. I won't go so much into the technical details around our compound, but it's a TRPV1 inhibitor. It's been in around 300 humans already, so we know a lot about the drug. We have a lot of safety data around the drug. We have data in diabetes, data in cardiovascular disease to suggest that it works. And we are looking, of course, now to expand into obesity. The tablet itself is a very nice stable formulation. It's basically non-degradable over 5 years. So this is a solution that is useful for the entire globe as we see it. So the expected benefits of our drug, XEN-D0501, a very nice and easy name to pronounce, is, like I mentioned before, that we're hoping that we can potentially both stimulate how much hunger patients experience, and at the same time we also hope to potentially elevate energy expenditure. And this is important because what we see with GLP-1s that primarily act on the hunger signaling is that patients tend to lose a lot of weight, but a lot of that weight is also muscle mass. And what is important, increasingly important now within the industry, is to find solutions that retain muscle mass, so it's more pure fat mass that you actually lose, because when you're up in your age, it's very difficult to put on muscle mass again. So leaner weight loss, as we call it, and we think we have a solution that could potentially play a part in this. This is just some data slides from the diabetes that we have. We've seen improved insulin secretion. We've seen a risk of reduction of risk of developing heart failure. I won't go too much into these. Some effect data on long-term blood sugar like HbA1c and improved glucose response. These are all great results, but non-conclusive. The study was only 4 weeks, but it does give us a very good idea that the drug is working, and we need to up the dose and do longer trials. So that is, of course, also on play. We have a small management team with myself, our Swedish CFO, Hampus, and our founder, Dode, who's also chairman of the board, and she's also running our clinical organization. Board of directors with Dode on the end, and of course we have Richard, who's our financial wizard, helping us navigate in these interesting market times, and we have Julie and Lasse, who both have a big pharma background in terms of taking products from mid to late stage and all the way to market launch. So they are a very good asset to have in the process now, where we are looking to enter later stages in the clinical development. And just to say that obesity as a hype has maybe really come through over the last year or two. Of course, main focus goes to the two big guys that we know, and there's also a couple of players in the US and in Denmark that have performed really well. Ever since the presidential election in November, of course, everything has been a bit up and down. I think that's not just the obesity sector, but generally speaking, what we do see is that Pila, in this regard, compares pretty well compared to the peers. We're roughly on par. The sector in general is down, but we're not off too bad. So I think that's a good thing. But I think it's also of interest to note how volatile the sector has become, even for the big cap companies. There's a lot of movement right now. So that's a brief summary of what we do. Just to summarize, there's a major unmet medical need. This market is estimated to be $100 billion by 2030. We have a very unique asset. It's a TRPV1 inhibitor. There's no one else doing this particular target in these diseases, as far as we know. We have a very experienced team, and we have some really, really good scientific experts that help us a lot in terms of how to design the trials. We have some data coming from obesity, hopefully, as well as, of course, running in parallel the original diabetes studies that we also still intend to carry out. And then hopefully, if we can engage with these obesity trials, there will be several potential value-adding triggers in the next 1 to 2 years. So hopefully that's of interest to investors. It's certainly very interesting to work with. So
super exciting. And as you mentioned, investors and also the obesity hype. Mm-hmm. Now you're out talking to investors. What's the feedback? What are they telling you?
They think that we need to go for it. I think it's getting acknowledged around the world now that that this is not just a hype anymore. It's an actual thing. It's a thing that's come to stay, and of course they can see their investment also perhaps being more feasible to get a good investment back if our drug is actually able to also generate weight loss data. And I think it's actually important to note that the original patent application that the company is based on was actually for treatment of obesity and obesity-related diseases and disorders.
Okay.
But back then, obesity wasn't categorized as a disease. So it's been a lot of work, trying to sort of work around and get some data in other related diseases. And then by accident or by luck, the market has come around, and now the disease is there. And the market is really being established from 0 to 25 billion now in 4 years. And judging by numbers, it's looking to increase dramatically going forward as well. Yeah,
and tablets would make a huge difference, being able to take it orally. How is your molecule different from other competitors trying to come up in the tablet space? Yeah,
so what we see is that, of course, I showcased that there's one drug currently on the market for diabetes. I know that Eli Lilly is about to launch their drug for obesity next year, and Novo as well. Mm-hmm. But theirs are based on peptides, so it's large molecules. They're quite costly to produce. They're quite costly to put into a tablet. There's a lot of it that kind of goes lost in the stomach. Yeah. So it's from a cost perspective, it's not something that would really generate a lot of value, I think. What we're looking at is that you need to have small molecules, so maybe 100 times smaller in chemical structures than theirs, in order to make it financially feasible. But that being said, there's a lot of drugs coming through in development. We have a very differentiated solution, and they are coming through with theirs. They have the capacity to, of course, produce and scale, and they are coming first to the market. But there will be a huge number of different subgroups of patients going forward, and everyone is agreeing that this market will fragment a lot going forward. So you will have many options. You will have many different solutions based on patients' needs.
There's a lot of companies trying to find and develop and study. Is it difficult to actually do the studies? Have the costs gone up for the studies? Is there limited opportunity to do the studies?
I mean, like everything else in the world, this industry has also been impacted by inflation, right? So of course, costs of producing the active pharmaceutical ingredient, or producing tablets, or conducting your preclinical studies, or clinical studies as a whole, all those costs have gone up. But of course, the reward at the end has also gone up tremendously in the last 4 years as well. I mean, there's a huge untapped market there. So many companies now see that, okay, costs have gone up, but you know, the risk reward calculation is maybe looking in their favor if they actually allocate the capital right now. Yeah. So that's what we see. We see investments across the line. Maybe there's a little bit of a downturn right now among private investors or among retail investors.
It's been a tough market for many small companies. How do you see the roadmap going forward? Are you looking to raise capital, or when do you start the next study?
Yeah, so we of course assess, you know, how much would a study like this be costing to conduct, and then we talk continuously to our investor base and hear what they believe. You know, do you think this would be a good idea to conduct? And then together with our board of directors, then we look at the options for getting the necessary capital in order to execute. Yeah. So this is a continuous exercise that we run, I guess, like many other companies in this space. It's not easy times, but that being said, we feel like we are in a very, very interesting segment where there's a lot of investor focus, so hopefully that will help us in the end.
And talking about investors, I think it's interesting to look at the share price.
Yeah.
And listed about 4 years ago.
Yes, almost.
First few years were a bit tough, in line with the industry, but we had a massive bump up in the last 15 months. What's been going on?
So, I mean, we listed in summer 2021, right? And I mean, it's just been crisis upon crisis upon crisis since, with, you know, COVID, and then the war, and then the inflation and everything. So it's been tough for everyone, including for us. And I think it's been really tough to raise the necessary capital to really move the needle for a lot of companies without really sacrificing the share price to a very huge degree. So what we see now is that, you know, things are coming the other way around. And that, I think that bump that we had last summer is very much indicative of us sort of being in the same room, if we can say so, like other companies in this particular field. So we saw that other companies, specifically in Denmark, that are mid-size, they had some very huge value increases in their stock pricing. And suddenly we started getting mentioned with their names in their chat forums and their groups. Yeah. And I think that's a very, you know, of course, nice feeling to get. I think the bump last summer was more a question of hype, necessarily, rather than necessarily us performing really well. I would like to think that, you know, I'm good at presenting, but maybe not that good at presenting. So difficult to say, but that being said, I think it's a signal that this market is really getting a lot of attention and traction among investors.
So investors, especially day traders, we want new information every single day. Yeah. That's not really how pharmaceutical development works.
It's challenging.
Yeah. But if we look over the next 6 months, are there any specific events that the market should be looking out for?
Yeah, so I mean, we of course now we assess the situation. If we could do a rat study, for example, in terms of, you know, can we do that? That would not be too long time frame, as I understand it. So whilst it's not cut in stone, I would say, you know, potentially we could be by the end of the year and have obesity rat data to showcase. That would be, of course, a very, very interesting trigger, because it would put us in a completely different league where we can actually showcase that, you know, now we're not just talking about obesity, but we're actually in it.
And there's been a lot of activity in the market, a lot of new drugs that are being bought up. Yeah. Do you think it'll be the big pharmaceuticals that are buying, or do you see outside capital coming in as well?
No, I think it would be big pharmaceutical, for sure. We went to a conference in March, which we do once a year more so, where we can actually meet the big pharma companies and tell us what, you know, we can tell them what we have going on and like how we intend to conduct the next trial, what we have in mind in terms of, you know, the different markers that we want to measure. And we had way more meetings this year than we had in the past, and exclusively big pharma meetings. And across the line, they were all interested. They said, look, what you do is really nice. It's super differentiated. We don't want more GLP-1s. We get them offered all the time. Yeah. But yours is very different. However, we want to see some weight loss data before we can make anything conclusive around it. So that's basically what sort of told us that, okay, we need to go back to the board with this and see if we can make a feasible plan to get some obesity data.
Gustav, it's been fantastic to have you here.
Likewise.
It's going to be very exciting to follow Pila Pharma.
Thank you so much.
This has been a super interesting conversation with Gustav and Pila Pharma. Finishing off, I want to say thank you everyone for watching. See you soon.